People walk days to get here, as far as 20 miles, which in the mountains, when you're sick or walking with children, takes a long time. In Mayan mythology, the hummingbird stands for refuge or looking out for you. The hummingbird looked out for the young king. And so I just thought we would call it House of the Hummingbird, Casa Colibri, because it's a place of refuge. We're looking out for people, but not in a patronizing way. More like this is a place you can come and find help. Casa Colibri is a medical clinic in the Huehuetenango province of northwest Guatemala, about 5.5 miles from the border of Mexico. We got involved with Casa Colibri before it was Casa Colibri. We got involved in Guatemala in 2001.
I'm a Rotarian, and a fellow Rotarian came to our club and said that she needed a medical needs assessment in the area.
My husband said, yeah, I'd love to go, I can do that. And then the person that wanted him to go said, well, now we need a Spanish translator, and I happen to speak Spanish. And so he came home and asked me, not knowing if I'd say yes or no, and I said, I'd love to, that sounds like fun, an adventure. It turned out to be life-changing, obviously. There was another gentleman on that trip, a Guatemalan, who also came as a translator, and we were absolutely blessed to have met right from the start.
Getting involved in this project started 18 years ago in 2001. I was called upon by some persons who needed a translator. Back then, I was working in the tourism industry. And one has no idea really that these kinds of circumstances exist when you live in the city.
They were a really victimized population, and they fled from these areas during the worst of the war. Then when the peace accords were signed, they slowly made their way back, but basically they had to start completely over. That's why we're in such a remote place, because this is where they came to rebuild from absolutely nothing.
It takes a day to fly to Guatemala and drive 6 hours to where we spend the night, and then another 6 hours in the morning to get to this area. And basically the needs assessment said that the people needed everything.
They had so many needs, not only medical needs, but needs in the area of schooling and literacy, needs in the area of clean water and sanitation. It goes on and on.
We stayed in a school the first night, and I use the term lightly because there was nothing in that building that would say that it was a school. There was no books, there were no notebooks, papers, nothing. And I happened to ask the teacher, what do you use to teach reading? You don't have any books, you don't have any newspapers, you don't have any written words. And he just basically said, we do the best we can. I looked around at the people and looked at their faces, and I was just overcome. I was overwhelmed with what I felt was expected, and I kind of bolted out of the room and went behind the building and just sobbed, because it was like, I'm only one person. I can't do this. Being a school teacher, I thought, well, I could get some books, and it was easy. It was easy. People want to help. We knocked on a couple of doors, we asked a couple of people, we were able to put a small library in that far, far remote place. And of course, once you put a library in one school, word gets out, and we had a couple more requests, and people wanting books, okay, twist my arm, I was all over that. And then just by telling our story more and more, people just wanted to help. And that's really how we came to this point.
When we first came here, really what we saw was what is now called extreme poverty. Since then, people have been able to climb out of extreme poverty, not to middle class, but have started to improve their lives.
Our primary areas of focus are disease prevention and treatment. Basic literacy and education is the second one. And the third one is infrastructure, which for us that means clean water and sanitation. One thing that we have focused on quite heavily is improving the maternal and infant death rate in this area. When we did our needs assessment, the official numbers were as high as 50% infant death and 25% maternal in childbirth. And those numbers were among the worst in the entire world.
It's harder than what we're used to as pregnancy. I mean, most women have multiple children, and they'll have one in their belly, and then they'll have one on their back, and they'll be working all day, and they're carrying around and making babies, in addition to cooking, cleaning. Some of them work in the fields. If they're not having a healthy pregnancy, no one knows. And if, for example, they have diabetes, they have a very large baby, and if they didn't monitor their diet with that, then they could have delivery complications. You know, they can't deliver a large baby vaginally. There's no access to C-sections because they wouldn't have known that, and the closest hospital is a 3-hour drive away. Coming in, we do fetal heart tones for them. We check their blood pressure and just make sure they're having a healthy pregnancy. And then we educate her on things that she can do to have a healthy baby. One of the things that they take away with them is vitamins, because their diet is lacking a lot of things that they need to produce a healthy child.
One of the things I'm most proud of is that we took a Mayan man who lives in this area, speaks this Mayan language, Canhobal, and we sent him to university for 4 years to be a nurse practitioner so that he could come back to this clinic and provide medical care every day.
Man asan tolcho atender anima hun kuye tokyay ilal ma maxil chihaye kok baitel chiap bula kismi manil sino que también chi el kasto hun aldeas tanto ashka lieto hun en carro hun chich clínica sobre ruedas chihil to bish ish ayog yalan unin bish ikhal el ish chihil to het hanta kaush nakhil chek to hiban isqina le bish yuh unin wal aych kan yalan unin shiwi shatzetal chihey to hiban ismi manile bish yet cuando shkan yalan unin entonces yo walich illa te junto como hochtaq bay juntan lugar bay kahano nekti kam maxil chilon de bishin yila te juntan kaush nakhil tu shiwi shatzetal chihey to hiban bish tanto ashka sheye hunok ilia chihayi ban bish man asan to ay ke yalan unin.
He's working long hours. He's delivering babies. He's doing the clinic on wheels.
He screens women, provides prenatal care. Now he also does that here in the clinic, but he can outreach many more people in different areas with the clinic on wheels.
He can flag potential catastrophes in childbirth and make arrangements to get those women to a hospital, which is considerably far away. From this clinic right here, it's 3 hours on a very bumpy, difficult truck ride. But at least if you know that there's a risk that's going to happen, we can identify those and get those into the hospital. And it has made a big impact on maternal and infant death.
Santol, un programa yet Casa Colibri, Chiyipay,
I hope this care goes to empowering women. I want to educate them so that they understand their bodies, they understand reproduction, and they have control over childbearing and what they're in their lives. Having access to care to the women, and it's not just the pregnant women, because I see lots of women. Sometimes I think it's just they know that someone cares about them. They come in with, back aches and belly aches, feet pain, and they just want someone to listen to what they have to say. And I find a lot of them walk out of here happy just after a conversation with us.
As much as the medicine we offer, the caring, compassion, and concern counts too, maybe even more than the medicine. Another part of healthcare that we've been able to expand dramatically is eye care.
It's such an amazing thing to watch somebody put on their first pair of glasses. About 17 years ago, I had eye surgery, and I went from 2600 vision to 20/20 vision. So I know the differences of what you see or can't see. I was legally blind, and if I was out in the trails out here, I'm certain that I'd fall off. Giving people the opportunity to see is amazing, because if they can't see, they can't walk, even if it's to the latrine a couple trees away. If they're a young adult or a medium-aged adult and they lose their vision and they can't see, they lose their job in this area. They become an instant burden on their family and their culture. Giving these people the ability to see allows more opportunity for them to take care of themselves and eventually solve some of the limits that they have here. You know, for the children, that opens the whole world. If a child can see in school, they can learn in school.
When we first started coming here, no little girl went beyond second grade. Now the girls are going to school as much as the boys are. And some of the girls are going on to high school just the way the boys are, and some of the boys and girls are going on to college.
Domingo Grande down there, the big guy, he has single-handedly brought early childhood literacy up to that part. And he's the one that will come and say, I need more of this book, like the first 500 words in Spanish. And it is like the New York Times bestsellers list up there. And it was because he had a little girl, Maria Cecilia, and he wanted her to have a book. And so he got her a book through Linda. And then he said, well, I want all the kids in my village to have books. And now there's kids up there sitting in the dirt, sitting on logs reading, and the dad will sit down on a bag of beans and they're going through the book together.
Just to give you an idea of how it's been evolving, the original school for Nuevo Eden, when they established this village, looked something like this. This is what a very typical rural school would look like. Corrugated steel roofs, you have boards on the sides. The original schools had no concrete floor, they had no lighting, no power. Today the school looks like this. Like I was saying, this is a single classroom school. What they will do normally is they will place the children in rows by grades. So the teacher will pretty much teach six grades in one morning. Usually the older children will help the younger ones. Despite the fact that it's something that is very rustic, children enjoy enormously coming to school every morning and getting the opportunity to get educated. We believe in improving education because this is the key factor for people to break out of the poverty cycle. Education, health, and any infrastructure related to both of those bigger programs.
I think the general state of health is better. People are being educated in how important hygiene is, how important good nutrition is. We're working on that. I mean, it's a work in progress. People here like their soft drinks and their snack foods as much as we do. The difference is we have dentists and toothbrushes and toothpaste. A lot of times I've seen a lot of kids have every tooth in their mouth pulled out. So we're working on that. We have some projects in that direction.
We pull teeth, we pull lots and lots and lots and lots of teeth because there are serious issues with water safety. You have to boil the water at a rolling boil for 20 minutes to make it safe, but when you have, a family of 12 and you have a pot of water and you're trying to, rolling boil and it's on a fire, it's difficult. And not to mention that for a large part of the year there's no water source here, so they have to go down to the river. They know it, but the reality of giving people nothing but water all the time is difficult, especially when the food and beverage industry started trucking up here these low price snacks and drinks and all that, but they're high sugar, high acid, and it's just taking a huge toll on the teeth and a huge toll nutritionally, especially for the kids, because they love this stuff. Once they taste it, they're like, of course they want it, they're kids. And if all you eat is beans and rice and beans and rice and beans and rice, and maybe once every month or two you get a little bit of chicken, well, that orange pop tastes fantastic. And when you're hungry and you're hot and you're thirsty, it's extra good.
capas ay dia en kaiti yuhtol chi wa ayudare chin trahi disiem y chin colone wa estos anehal yin kanjobal kalin español. Objetivo ma hunis meta epti tolchi yi elapnok bay hantag anima kahan bay hun comunidad ti yuhtol chi yoche heptol watch tol ay watch hun sa unintuk am chi ahya ilye yuhtol yin sha abilal yuhun abil chi hay unin kaiti asha hun sa unin chi hay kaiti hantag anima icham ache chuche Punsansha, chi hayep kaiti is objetivo epti, yuhtol am chi ahyailyep, yuhtol watch kalisyep, chi aek masani abil, am chi ahyailyep.
I can't believe that we've come this far, really. I mean, it's taken some time and it's taken some focused vision. Really, from where we started, it's just amazing, the services that we have been able to offer and the impact that it's made.
At first, it was very difficult. The poverty was so extreme. There was no utilities out here, no electricity, no running water. It was very, very difficult life for people. And little by little, that's getting better. There's still a long way to go. I'm not trying to deny that, but we're starting to see some changes and changes for the better.
When I first started coming here, the clinic was on a generator. So now we have electricity most of the time. Our water supply has increased. Even just the, as far as the country goes, it's very exciting to see completion of projects. Bridges have been built, roadways have been paved. There's more transportation in the country, and now our patient population has more accessibility for resources, which is wonderful.
As much as conditions have improved and as much as Casa Colibri has helped the Mayan people, there's a deep change that happens in our volunteers as well. We've seen time and time again that you can't help but be deeply affected and changed just by being here.
Coming here for the first time changed my life forever. I was a pretty self-centered person when I first came here, and it's made me understand what it is to relate to the rest of the world. And I just love it, and I've loved to involve other people in that process.
Getting involved made a difference in my life, and with that, we're capable of making differences for other people's lives.
But again, sometimes it's the Mayans who make the difference in their example of resilience and their joy and simplicity.
You see all the children we attend to, they smile, they're happy children, despite the fact that everything is adverse and everything is just so much more difficult.
People find their pleasure in very, very simple things. Games. Get a soccer ball out and suddenly you've got 20 kids kicking it around, and if it's not a soccer ball, they find a balloon or something that's round and they can kick. It can be anything. At home, you've got to have uniforms and a coach and a league and referees and that kind of stuff. It's so much different. It almost defies description.
The people here are just incredibly loving. I took like an hour to walk here the first time I was here, out through the village, and got to stop, meet people. I couldn't speak their language except for the smiles and the hugs, and it was just amazing, comforting, wonderful thing to be here. I join in other missions around the world and stuff. I've got my heart here in Casa Colibri. I'm actively involved in depths beyond just the eye clinic.
I love the patient population. They are so kind and patient, and they express themselves without using a lot of words, because I can't understand a lot of what they're saying with their words, but how they use their eyes and treat each other, it's obvious that they're very kind and appreciate the things that are being done. I think the biggest thing that we provide is the respect and just demonstrating how important they are as people.
I guess the best way to describe it is I go home now after these missions, and people often hear about how poor the people are here. And they say, aren't you just so glad when you get home about all the things you have? And I'm like, not really, not really. I'm actually a bit jealous when I get home of the things these people have that we don't have anymore. The love of their family, the love of their culture, the love of each other. And I feel that, I absorb that when I'm here.
I get a sense of connecting with an individual. They're very appreciative, and that makes you feel good. I came back because I prayed on this journey, and God spoke to me on complacency, and He said, you can't be complacent where you're at.
I don't have to tell a lot of people to convince them. A lot of people want to come for the adventure. It's the second time, and many people who do come for the adventure do come back for the Maya.
You know, most people can't find Guatemala on a map before they come here. I lived as a teenager in North Africa, so my assumption, I always knew I'd go and do international work. My assumption was always that I would go back there because, you know, I was decent with the language, I knew the area. Then I just kept coming back here. I like the people I came with, I like the team, which was not just the gringos, but I really like all the Mayan people that we work with, the local people, and I think that's what makes Casa Colibri really unique. For 3 or 4 years here in the dental clinic, I was the only American. It seemed like it was the right thing because it's their country, and I was here to help out, but I liked that I was working with all Guatemalans, and I was a minority, which seemed like the way it should be. And I've liked how I've seen over the years the Mayan people that we work with more and more become, what's the word, like empowered. And you can see a lot of difference now between the people who are in their 40s and 50s that lived most of their life in the Civil War, and they're tiny, they're frail. A lot of times their health is terrible. Some of them are really psychologically scarred by what they went through, and they went through terrible, terrible things, especially some of the women. And then it's great to see the generation that was born after the war, and they're totally different people, much more empowered. When I first started coming here, people wouldn't even, they'd shuffle in, they'd have their heads down, but they would never look up in our faces. Now, most people look up, and people are starting to complain, and I think that's progress because they're able to identify now, this is a problem, and I want to speak up about it. And I think that's a lot of what Casa Colibri is doing, is empowering the people.
Well, my long-term hope has always been that someday we would hand it over to the Guatemalan people themselves. And we're making real progress in that direction. Our executive director is Guatemalan. A lot of our volunteers are Guatemalan. Our employees are all Guatemalan. We have our nurse practitioner and our caretaker of the property and the building. And someday, with help and with teaching and nurturing, and that's my vision, is to turn it over to the Guatemalan people and let this be their project. And so I'll go back to that scene on the first day here when I was so overwhelmed, crying behind the school building. We had a fellow on our team that came with us that found me, and he knew why I had bolted out. And he said, think of it this way. You can't do everything, but you can do something. We can do something. And think of what you can do as a person, as one person. And like Mother Teresa said, the ocean is made up of drops. And so you can do a drop or 2 or 3.
There are still people that need help. It is getting better, there's no question about that, but there are still lots of people in extreme poverty who do need help. And we should always think of them, especially when we have so much.
What can I say? This is probably the best thing that's ever happened to my life, and reorients everything. So, yeah, this is Nuevo Eden. It literally means New Eden. This is where we are in the middle of the rainforest in Guatemala. So, I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Thanks.